Hi, I'm Crystal,
And I'm Neoshia.
and you're listening to the Rom-Com Detectives. Welcome to Rom-Com Detectives, episode 79, Cool Dad. Today, Neoshia and I will be talking about Castle Season 2, episode 9, Love Me Dead.
This episode originally aired on November 16th, 2009, was written by Alexi Hawley and directed by Brian Spicer.
Case briefing, the victim in this one is Jack Buckley, an ADA. His cause of death was falling from a roof.
The killer of this episode is actually a little bit ambiguous to me. I'm not sure we actually got clarification because it seems like it was a conspiracy between Scarlett and Jonathan Knox. The motive for this particular death was hostile business takeover.
I do want to say that I think it's Knox because Castle makes a point of saying that like whoever threw him off the roof is pretty strong, and Scarlett doesn't look like she could throw a man off the roof. So
True, but I also had questions about the whole like throwing him off the roof. And I know
uh-huh.
people listening can't see me putting air quotes on throwing, because do you really have to throw him off the roof?
Yeah, that's true. You could push him, right?
Right, right. And so I was like kind of questioning like how they came to that particular conclusion that something like ultra violent had to happen and it had to be a big guy who did it. But you're right, I think they are kind of threading it's more of Jonathan. And I guess we should also add, though, that Jonathan is also a victim in this episode, who's
Yeah. Oh
definitely
yeah,
killed by
yeah,
Scarlett.
yeah.
So, spoiler
Forgot about
alerts.
him.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, their motive is hostile business takeover. Guest stars Michaela McManus. She played Scarlett. She's from SEAL Team. She was in Aquarius and Memory of a Killer. There's JB Smoove. He played Norman Jessup, who was a very memorable character for the little bit of screen time he had.
Hmm.
He was very fun to watch, and I thought it was funny that when I went to go look up his IMDb profile, that he is actually an Emmy award-winning actor.
Yeah, he
He
is.
he won for best actor in a comedic role, I think, for Mapleworth Murders.
Yeah, and he also is a writer. He's a writer and an
Ah,
actor. So, yeah, I've seen him in a lot of different things. But yeah.
he has a very fun vibe about him. He looks like he's fun to be around.
Hmm.
There's Jonathan LaPaglia. He played Knox. He's from Love Child. He was in an episode of The Mentalist. He was the bad guy or the mobster guy in Il Tovolo Bianco. And he's also been on Cold Case. There's Danny Nucci. He played Detective Mazzara. And he's also from The Mentalist. He was in Flame Red. And he's also from Titanic and The Rock. He's a pretty recognizable face to me, I think, from the 90s, if you watched a lot of TV and movies in the 90s. And then there's Charles Rae Chun. He's from House, General Hospital, Criminal Minds. And finally, this guy wasn't really in the episode because he just played the dead guy. So he's just like lying on the car for a brief moment in the beginning. But I thought it was funny that he's played by Jeff Castle. I had to mention that.
Yeah, I kept his first name, and apparently his last name is the show's name.
Okay, episode breakdown. A couple argues as they leave the parking garage, and then a man's body lands on the hood of their car as they're pulling out. And so next we go to Castle. He's working in his office, and he overhears Alexis talking to a friend on the phone, and she's saying he's gonna freak. And so he is nosy, of course. So
Hmm.
he like goes out there and he wants to know what she's talking about. And so he asks her, and she's like, "Oh, it's just someone from school." And he's like, "Oh, well, you can tell me anything." She's like, "Yeah, I know." And then she just goes upstairs. And so he's just like, "What was that?" And that's the start of his little Alexis subplot line for the episode, right?
Hmm.
But Beckett calls, and so they meet at the scene. And when she greets him, he's like, "Did you ever keep secrets from your father?" And he's like, "No, no, no. Alexis would never keep secrets from me because I'm the cool dad."
Cool dad. Episode title.
Yeah, but yes, this is like a source of pride for him, I guess, because this isn't the first time he's referred to himself as cool, the cool dad, right?
No, no. And I think it is a source of pride because, as we've talked about, Alexis does do a little bit of, quite a bit of
Parenting.
parenting. Yeah.
Beckett is surprised because Montgomery's at the scene, and it's because the victim is ADA Jack Buckley, and they call him one of the good guys, and that he was very gung ho, and all the cops wanted him prosecuting their cases because he was always going after the criminals really hard. But Esposito and Ryan report signs of a struggle, and that he appeared to have been on the roof because his briefcase is still up there. And then Castle. Okay, so you gotta. Do you are you familiar with Cape Fear?
No, actually, I was going to ask you about it because I believe it's a book, right? And there's currently a TV show airing on Apple
Yeah, on
TV
Apple TV.
that's based on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he kept referring to it. I mean, he does like a quick spin through the basic plot line of Cape Fear at the beginning, but he said it too fast and it went over my head. But it made me think, oh, I think I might want to watch the Apple TV show now, just because it
Yeah.
sounded interesting.
I was already thinking about it because Amy Adams is in it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And who else is in? Oh, Javier Bardem, right?
Hmm.
There's somebody else too, I think. But yeah, I've been getting a lot of ads for that when I watch Silo.
Yeah, that's kind of what did it. And I was like, oh, Amy Adams. But I think the basic plot, right, is that a guy who gets out of prison then goes after the lawyers who were either responsible for putting him there. Well, actually, we could just say responsible for putting him there and leave it at that. But I think that's the basic plot of it.
But yeah, so it was a 1990s movie with Robert De Niro, because I mean Castle later does a Robert De Niro
Hmm.
impersonation.
But
But
it's not
I've
a
never
book,
seen
also.
that. No, I
Is it
think
not
it
a book?
is.
I thought it might be like a
Uh,
Stephen King or someone like famous book.
Actually, yeah, it's based on the novel The Executioners by John D. MacDonald.
I see. Yep. So, I mean, I found this scene particularly interesting. For me, it was a little weird that they referred to the prosecutor as a law enforcement officer because that's like two different branches of the government.
Hmm.
I sorry, I felt weird saying that. I was like, that's like two branches of the government. So you have usually the law enforcement arm, which is the police, right? And you have the prosecutor arm, which is part of the judiciary. And so, like, I don't know, like, I know they work together, and that's a pretty big plot point here in terms of, or early plot point in terms of like, cops love this guy because he's not cutting deals. Like he's not a big deal cutter. He's not like going to tell you, "Oh, we need more evidence." He's going to come hard and fast at the criminals that you arrest. So, we love him, but I just don't know why we're calling him a law enforcement officer.
Okay, this is gonna take us off topic, but I have always been confused about this. Okay, so you know the show Law and Order, right?
Uh-huh.
Which side is law and which side is order?
I think law is the prosecutor side and order is the cop side.
Yeah, that's what I
That's
thought too. But I always get confused because they say law first and order second. And if you look at the logo, the law is in blue and the
mhm.
order is in red. And I tend to associate cops with blue.
Mhm.
So that has always confused me. I'm always like, which is law, which is order? Because it makes sense both ways to me.
I have a theory about that actually. So, I think law is definitely the prosecution part of it,
Uh
and
huh.
order is the police part of it. But if you watch the original Law and Order, where this actually there was a huge distinction because half the show used to be cop, like
Uh
police
huh.
procedural,
Yeah.
and
And then,
half the show was dedicated to the prosecution.
yeah.
It was always the first half, obviously, that was investigative, and the second half that was prosecution. So having the blue around the law, because it comes first, makes sense because you're watching the cops first, and then you get into the prosecution side of things. So I think that color coding might be on purpose because they
Yeah.
use the same logo. It's been the same logo since 1990 in the original
Yeah.
series. actually.
Yeah.
I think since the 1988 pilot, actually, because the first pilot for Law and Order was in 1988, and then it came to series in 1990. I don't know why there's a difference in the. I'm sorry, you tapped into something I I know quite a bit about.
No, but I find this very fascinating, so it's fine. But yeah, I've always
Yeah,
wondered this because every time I think about it, I'm like, wait, but no, I start thinking in circles about
yeah.
it.
No, I was a big fan of the original show, and I have, like, obviously watched SVU over the years, like, my mom and
Yeah,
I watched it, like, when it started, which at this point is, like, what, 27 years ago?
yeah. I used to watch it in college, so
Yeah, and so, like, I've been a big fan of Law& and Order for a long time, and so it's an interesting, like, point that you raised because I never thought about it, but as soon as you said it, I was like, "Well, I think it might be," because, yeah, law is associated with prosecuting and the judiciary, but the first part of the show is actually the cops, and so blue
yeah,
comes first, then
yeah.
comes red.
Yeah. See, so I still don't know now, even though we've talked about it now. I can't decide.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back on track. So where were we? Esposito talks about how his secretary said that he left work at 8, he lives on the west side, and Ryan says that he was a subway rider and that he was found in a parking garage on the east side. So they're curious as to why he's like and why he ended up here. And Montgomery says the mayor wants the case solved quickly because, like you said, he refers to him as a law enforcement officer. And I want I want to say that it's interesting to watch shows that take place in New York City now that I've actually been to New York City. I can kind of tell now the difference between watching Castle and FBI because Castle was filmed in LA and so they made LA look like New York. Like LA stands in for New York, right? But you look at FBI and it's actually filmed in Manhattan and Brooklyn. And I can tell like a big difference now since I've been
Yeah.
there and I've seen the buildings and the architecture and things like that. So yeah, so watching Castle this time made a big difference because I could see that it was not filmed in New York, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the same holds true for Law& and Order, which we were just talking about, because you can definitely tell that Law& and Order was filmed in New York.
All the brownstones and everything. Right.
Yeah, it is filmed in New York, and then also, another big indicator for me, that we haven't run into quite yet, because I think they are actually wearing jackets, but, like, the fact that it'll be middle of the winter, and the people are not wearing jackets, and they're like, "We're
Yeah.
in New York," and no, you're not. Unless you pull out a Canadian goose coat or a Columbia coat, something like that, you're not in New York because it gets cold. I mean, we're not talking about like Minnesota Arctic weather. We're not talking Arctic weather. We're talking, just mild winter time stuff.
So they go to his office and they talk to his assistants. One of them hands Castle a stack of files of criminals that he's been prosecuting, I guess. And Castle makes a joke about one of them because he was because he was arrested for indecent exposure along with something else, and he says, "Do you think he tried to kill him with his?" And he doesn't say, but he means penis. And I was just like, where did that joke come from? It just
Yeah.
didn't land well with me. I was like, huh?
No. I mean, but it's also such a castle joke.
Yeah. It's very juvenile, I guess.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're right. It does fit. But he keeps going with this Cape Fear thing, and so the Cape Fear thing is somebody gets out of prison and they go after the lawyer who defended them. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
so. They ask if he had received any threats, and his secretary says usually, and that he's usually. I guess it was like kind of like a bare minimum that he felt that he should be getting threats or something like that. So he sounds like a kind of contentious lawyer.
Yeah, which is so weird to me because it's terrifying. Like nobody wants to be that person that's like, "Oh yeah, these hardened criminals who are so dangerous, I have to put them in jail. They're threatening me." So that's a good thing. Like that's why the Supreme and I mean like, we see this like in current like politics where the Supreme Court justices in the US are trying to get security because this is a really frightening thing to have someone, threatening you because you're just doing your job, which happens to be hearing court cases or prosecuting cases in this case.
But the secretary remembers a cop bringing a man in to talk to Buckley, and that they could hear them fighting, and that man was. They heard him yelling through the door, and then the cop took him away. So at the station, Beckett says that the cop doesn't remember why Buckley wanted to see the man, but he was named John Knox. So they bring him in and they question him, and he denies killing Buckley. Castle is like, "Do you work out? Do you deadlift?" That
Nice little
was
pun.
but he explains Buckley tried him for a crime that he didn't commit and he lost. And rather than be an adult, he tried to like amp it up even more. And he claims that he's a criminal, but he's not stupid and that he never tried to kill a DA. When they ask him for an alibi, he says that he was at an AA meeting and he gives them the name of his sponsor, who is a priest.
A reverend, not a
Yeah,
priest.
a reverend. And and that becomes important later
Hmm.
because a reverend is a pretty rock solid alibi. So Ryan tells Montgomery that Knox's alibi checked out and that he looked into the Metro card of the victim, and he would usually swipe twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening when he went home. But on the day he died, he made an extra trip to West 77th Street before going to work. And so Esposito goes to talk to the doorman of that building, and the doorman swears he saw the same man on the day of the murder, and he gives him a photo of the man from surveillance cameras. And so Castle and Beckett see the Reverend out, and then they see the photo that the doorman provided them,
Hmm.
and Castle recognizes him from his Cape Fear file which is what he calls the files that of criminals that he had been given. But this brings him to Norman Jessup. So they look him up, and he was just released early on a technicality, and Buckley had already filed to retry to put him back in jail. So they figure that is potentially motive. So
Hmm.
they go to him, they find him in the middle of a bar fight. This scene was pretty amusing because Cass like, "Aren't you going to do anything?" She's like, "No, the easiest way to get hit is to break up a bar fight." And then
Right.
right on cue, Castle gets slugged in the face.
Right. And then she has to arrest him. Like, and that's,
Yeah,
how she gets to ask her questions, I guess.
yeah. But it's so funny because they're in the interrogation room and Castle has an ice pack on his face, and this guy Jessup is apologizing for embarrassing him in front of his girlfriend.
Which is funny because, like, she's just, again, instant denial. Not his girlfriend. I'm a detective.
Yeah. And also, like, why would he think that that's his girlfriend? Because she's a cop, obviously, and he's sitting in the interrogation room with him. So does he think that Beckett is just like, how bring my boyfriend to work day?
I mean, that or, like, it's just like a general, like, calling it misogynistic is a little, I think, harsh. But, like, one of those comments that a guy would make to another guy, like, "Oh, sorry I embarrassed you in front of that lady. Like, I
Yeah.
hit you in front of a woman. I'm sorry."
But maybe it's also that he just gets that vibe off of Castle, that Castle is drawn to Beckett that way.
Yeah, because a lot of people do, right? Like, this isn't the first, like, "Oh, your girlfriend," and they're like, "No."
Yeah. But he insists that he's innocent and that he was the same way with the crime that he went away for, the bank robbery. He says that his friends didn't tell him they were going to rob the bank.
And he
He was
gave them
just.
a hide, is how he says it. I'm guessing that car was really, really, really good car. He loved his car.
Yeah. But she asked him, "Well, how did you react when you heard that Jeff Buckley was going to retry your case and try to put you back in jail?" He's like, "Oh, I cried like a baby." And I liked how he's like, "Prison is not fun."
Yeah. He said, "I don't wanna go back."
But he says that he was following him around for a few days. He just wanted to talk because he was getting up the courage to go talk to him so that he could, convince him to like go easy on him, like see some reason. And Beckett's just staring at him like, "What?" Because he's basically admitting to stalking. And she's just like, "So you're stalking him?" And I love that he says, "Stalking is a pretty damn ugly word."
Mhm.
Because we just on our last episode 78 was a mentalist episode, and in that one Patrick Jane gets accused of spying, and he says spying is such an ugly word.
Yeah. I think JB Smoove is always a pretty good character actor, and he does really well when it comes to adding comedic flair, and I think in this particular role, he does that just really well. Um, and the other thing I just wanted to add before we, like, continue with talking about the scene is just a little legal note here because This part of the episode actually made me think this DA was shady. And I don't think I was supposed
Mm,
to get there quite yet. But the fact that this person was released on a quote unquote technicality, gets out of prison. So that means he's been convicted already. Gets out of prison because of this quote unquote technicality, which means he filed an appeal and was released because something went wrong during the prosecution. That's called double jeopardy.
yeah,
You can't just
I
keep
was
like
putting him
going
back
back.
in for the same thing.
Right, and going after him, and, like, so that actually to me kind of rang like, this prosecutor's vindictive, and, like, the fact that he's gonna try to, like, go after someone again for the same crime made him seem shady to me. I don't know if that's on purpose or not because, like, again, I think the way that Jessup is kinda set up here is, like, yeah, he probably is a criminal, right? Like, his whole, "I just gave my friends a ride," is probably meant to make us think, like, okay, dude, like, you helped them in the robbery, and but I guess on the flip side is there's a lot of people who go to prison for stuff like that who didn't know what, like, the people they let in their car were doing. Anyway, long story short, that it feels like either it's a contrived plot point or we're supposed to start picking up maybe that this prosecutor's not on the up and up.
Mm, mm. But so he claims his alibi that he was at the bar that they arrested him. And then when Castle realizes that he was following Buckley, he probably saw him going on that extra train stop. So they ask him what he saw him doing. He says he met an Asian guy outside of a fancy apartment building and they were arguing. And Beckett's like, well, would you recognize the building again? He's like, yeah. So they go on a road trip. They take him in the car. He's in the back and he's like, can you take these, can I take these cuffs off? Because I feel like a stereotype. And she's like, she, she wasn't going to let him go, right? She was just like, you want my keys? Like, she was saying it sarcastically, right?
Yeah, like, "Hey, oh, you want my keys? I can give you my keys to take them off if you want." That's kinda how I heard that.
Yeah. But he's like, no, I'll take care of it. And then he goes in the back and he just gets him off in seconds.
Mhm.
Even she
Yeah,
was surprised, right?
she looked surprised, but the way that he just kinda casually asks, "Hey, do you mind if I take these cuffs off?" Kinda like, "Do you mind if I sit down?" It was so funny to me.
Yeah, because it's so casual, right?
Mhm. Like, "Do you mind if I just take these off?"
It was almost like he was talking about shoes.
Mhm.
It's okay if I take my shoes off. But yeah, the castle asked him, how'd you do it? And he said that he spent a lot of time in jail thinking about how he could be more productive. And he like moans about how he can't get into locksmith school because he's a felon. This scene is so funny. And then he's Beckett is snide about this, and Jessup's like, "You don't have to be mean about it." And Castle's like, "Yeah," and then Castle ends up being stuck in the back with him.
Yeah, so I mean, I get the impression that she literally pulled over and said, "Get out and get in the back."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very mom pulling over. That's it. I wish they had shown that, but it's so funny the way they presented it.
Yeah, like, cause it's just literally cut like a cut scene, and next thing you see is Castle in the back seat with Jessup.
There's a couple of scenes like this in this episode where Beckett just gets really mad,
Mhm.
and she like gets in Castle's face. But yeah, I really like these. They're very amusing. But so in the back, Jessup's trying to teach Castle how to remove the cuffs. And meanwhile, Alexis calls Beckett on her phone and she wants to talk to her. So they arrange to meet. And he's like listening in on all of this because Alexis wants her advice and he's dying to know. And Beckett's very casual about it and she won't tell him what it's about. And then right then, Jessup recognizes the building. And so they go and they find out that the only Asian tenant is called Paul Cho. And he's Buckley's ex brother in law. And he claims he hasn't seen his brother in law in months since the divorce. But Beckett's like, we have an eyewitness that says that who's who happened they just left him in the car, yeah.
Mhm.
Not handcuffed, probably. They
No,
should
but
have they should have
imagine.
brought they should have brought him with, or do you think they just locked him in the back? Is that
I mean,
sufficient?
he's probably locked in the back, but I'm like,
Yeah.
that has to be violating some rule to just leave a person locked in the back of a police car,
Yeah.
unguarded,
Yeah.
because it was just them, right?
And they know that he can get out of cuffs, so why wouldn't they think that he can get out of a car too?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of faith in him not just, like, getting out of that car and running off.
There was a lot of trust established in that car ride.
Yeah, I think so.
They finally get him. Like she's basically telling him, "Well, we're gonna have to take you down to the station because you're clearly lying." And he's like, "Well, actually, the other night I was attacked by a man in a ski mask, and he told me to back off of Danton, or he'd be ruined." And they're like, well, what do you mean ruined? And he's like, he has a slight fondness for girls. It's just
Which,
such an awkward conversation here because the castle's like, young girls, right?
yeah,
And
so this
yeah,
part
go.
actually did make me laugh because not because we could have been potentially talking about him being attracted to young girls, but it was the way that Castle slowly works his way in because he just says girls. Why didn't
Yeah,
he just say call girls? Like, you know what I mean? Because that's what he's talking about.
yeah,
But he slowly works his way around to it. And I'm laughing because I'm kind of like with Castle here, where I'm just kind of like, can you define girls?
yeah. Elaborate a little. Like, what are you talking about? When you just say
Right.
girls, it sounds terrible out of context.
Right. It's like, yeah, because what are we talking about here?
Because you say girls and people immediately go to young girls or little girls, so do you want to be assumed to be a pedophile or just assumed to like escorts?
Right, which one of those is way worse than the other.
I know. But they're like, okay, we gotta bring Danton must be the pimp, so they want the guy Cho to call the number and arrange for a girl. And Castle's like, tell her to wear something sexy, since they might as well get enjoyment out of this. But the call girl arrives, and it's one of Buckley's office assistants, Scarlett. So they interview her, and she's in tears, saying that Jack was her client and that she started seeing him a year ago and that he was just lonely because of his divorce. And they went on dates and went to fancy restaurants. And that Buckley saw a law book in her bag one day, and she told him that she was only a call girl so that she could pay her way through law school. So he felt sorry for her. And a few months later, he offered her an internship at his firm.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I'm kind of over this like working my way through law school trope. It's kind of a tired trope. And it's not just working my way through law school, right? Like I think we see like, oh, I'm just working my way through school because from a fictional standpoint, like I think the reason they do this is because we're meant to have sympathy for this poor young woman who has no other way to go to school. And so she's just, caught up in this really hard world of like being a sex worker. But then the show can still take on this like, ew, sex work is gross, like as its main sort of position towards sex work. And so they get to kind of take that approach to the storyline. And we even hear Beckett talk about a little bit later in terms of like how damaging this world and this work is to people. But, it's not her fault. She's just really caught in a really bad situation because she's trying to work her way through school. And I do like later on that they kind of explore like the consequences of her being found out to be a call girl. Because I don't see a world, and I could be wrong, because I'm sure there are exceptions, but I don't know how you make it through the character and fitness part of becoming a lawyer and be a call girl. Like, I don't know how that happens, like, especially once you're found out. And so you're taking a big risk because I guess if you never get found out and like no one knows, which is not a thing in 2026 because everyone's on friggin' TikTok and everywhere else, right? Telling their business. You you're running a real risk of never being able to be a lawyer because you don't have the character for it, which is not me making a moral judgment on sex work. It's just how the world sees sex work. It's an illegal occupation. So it's a whole thing.
Also, I don't know if this is actually true, but on so many TV shows, you see like they'll encounter like an escort service, and they have a website, and they've got really like gorgeous, sexy pictures of all the options that you can pick from. And so I feel like these websites are digital footprints, and so if you work in one of these services, would you risk putting are these websites real, and would you risk putting your picture up on one of these? I mean, I feel like that's easily traceable.
That's a good question, and I didn't think about it until you mentioned this, but this has to be written around the time of the whole Ashley Madison scandal, which was a website, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, not the internet was in the dawn and its dawn. It was in its infancy. I mean, we had the internet around for a little while at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
But in terms of accessibility, in terms of like, it certainly wasn't today where everyone has the internet in their pocket because most people have a smartphone that has the internet. it wasn't like this, oh, you can go find this on the internet or you can image search or there's all these layers of different internet security. But I bet that has to do with the Ashley Madison scandal. Like
Hmm.
if I and again, I didn't look to see if this was written around that time, but that was all about, young women who were essentially escorts on a website.
So next we go to the murder board. They're talking things through, and Castle wonders why Buckley would investigate a service that he himself uses. And Beckett speculates that maybe there was blackmail involved because he's an ADA. And then Beckett asks Castle to sign paperwork so she can get Jessup processed, but he's like, eh, he doesn't want to. He says he
Mhm.
feels sorry for the guy, and Beckett's like, "What?" But she calls downstairs and she has him processed and released, which was nicer. But you can tell that she wasn't upset about it. She was just kind of giving him crap, and I guess she must have connected with him too because she looks kind of amused, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, obviously Castle bonds with him and she's ready again to do her job as a cop. Like it's just, hey, I saw him hit you, so let's press charges. But Castle's like, do we have to? Do we really?
He's so nice.
Yeah.
But Castle goes towards he's gonna leave, I think, and he finds Scarlett looking sad and holding a broken shoe, and they make a joke about it being a family heirloom. And she tells him about when she first came to the city and how the first night someone broke into her car and stole her stuff, and then her housing fell through. But she says somehow she survived. And then she says that a friend mentioned the call girl thing for her, and she thought that, well, I can't do any worse, so that's why she started into that. But she thanks him for listening, and then Beckett's going home. She's like, "Bye, Castle." He's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
are you gonna go meet Alexis?" And he wants to go too, and she's like, "No."
Yeah, I mean, he's really intent on figuring out what they're talking about, right? Like he wants to know. But then he also wants to be cool dad who doesn't know cuz like he trusts Alexis to talk about things with other people. I kind of wanted to jump back just a moment to the Scarlet story here cuz this is a really big example of what I'm talking about in terms of like the working your way through school trope. Like she arrives in the big city and she has all these like horrors befall her and so she has to take this job. She has no other choice. But I've also seen Coyote Ugly. That's a joke. um, I do like that movie though. But she has all these things befall her, so she has no choice but to step into this illicit sex trade. And poor, 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 poor girl.
So at home, Castle tries to get Martha to tell him what's going on with Alexis, and Alexis comes home as they're talking. He's like, "Oh, how'd your talk go?" And she's like, "Oh, Beckett's really nice." And he's like, if you don't want to talk to me about what you talked about, you don't have to." And she's like, "Okay, bye."
Hmm.
Which it's so funny to watch him try to be cool dad while trying to also get what he wants, but having
Yeah.
everything backfire on him.
It's just like one of those things where he's like, I'm going to give you permission not to tell me, but I really want you to tell me.
But it
So I
goes
think
right over her
that's
head.
right, right, right. And I think it's still part of the cool dad aesthetic, right? Because I'm asking and I would love it if you told me, but I'm going to trust you enough not to tell me. But you can be comfortable telling me, right? So he's still doing cool dad, but he wants to know.
He wants both best of both worlds.
Exactly.
But Martha's like, "Why did you just ask her?" And he's like, "No, cool dads don't ask. They go behind their back and beg Beckett to tell them."
Right.
Uh, but Ryan and Esposito are back at the precinct, and they talk about how Jeff Buckley saw himself as a crusader for justice. They talk to a detective Mazzara, who's from Vice, and he and Esposito joke around about Esposito's mom. And,
Yeah.
he tells them that he arrested Danton, and it stands for Dan Tonelli,
Tonelli.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Daniel Tonelli or Dan Tonelli.
but he's still in prison, so that confuses them. And Mazzara tells him, "Well, these cargo businesses are like franchises, and they just change hands, and somebody takes over and stuff like that." So, but they bring in Dan Tonelli,
Yeah.
and Beckett's gone to City Hall to talk to, I guess, the upper people. It's funny that in other New York shows, they always refer to 1PP, right?
Hmm.
But in this case, it's always like the mayor or city hall or some kind of politician. I don't think they ever mention 1PP in the show, right?
No, and I kind of wonder if it's because this is supposed to be like an elite murder, like a major case. Like they never call it that, I don't think, but it's
Uh-huh.
supposed to be like a major case, like celebrity profile. I mean, kind of like what we see with the Mentalist and the CBI, how they handle like the celebrity
Yeah.
cases, or high profile cases. And so like it makes some sense that if you're dealing at such a high level, you would be talking maybe directly to the mayor. But also that kind of seems like you're jumping the chain of command because there's
Yeah.
got to be layers of people above Montgomery even who would be in charge of doing that, of like briefing the mayor. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but you're right. Like it is usually One Police Plaza for the New York shows, and other shows I think do show how there's all these different layers of, I don't know,
Yeah,
management.
there's like a
Yeah.
commissioner and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's all these other people, right? So
Yeah.
Beckett's not there, so Castle like uses the opportunity to ask Ryan and Esposito, what could Alexis be hiding from me? And they're like, well, they're like, these two guys can sense blood in the water with Castle. So they go right into it. They're like, oh, maybe she got kicked out of school. Maybe she's pregnant. Maybe she's doing drugs. And
Yeah.
he starts like freaking out.
Yeah,
He's
the
like,
teen pregnancy bit, man, that was kind of below the belt, but also, yeah, that was a good one because you're right, they were like kind of circling. They smell the blood and they're circling in the water.
and he's like, no, have you met my daughter? She's as perfect can be.
Mhm.
But they keep digging in. It's like maybe she's not as perfect as you think she is, but it's enough where you can tell that they're just ripping him
Mhm.
because they've met Alexis, and we've seen in a previous episode where Esposito didn't even want to say the word bitch around her,
Yeah.
so they know what she's like. So Beckett arrives and asks about Danton, and Castle asks about the deal that Buckley made him, especially since he has a reputation for not making deals. And Beckett thinks that the person who took over his operations is the one who killed him. So they talk to Tonelli, and he laughs at them and basically says that, if that's the case, it was a suicide
Mhm.
because he's the new Danton. And they're just like floored by this. So,
Yeah, and so, I mean, because Tonelli tells them basically that the real deal, because he did get a deal, and I think that's one of the things that sort of piqued their interest because we were told early on that this guy Buckley doesn't make deals.
yeah.
He's not he wasn't that kind of prosecutor, but Tonelli has a deal. He got a deal. And at this point in time, Tonelli reveals to Beckett and Castle that like the real deal between us was he was going to take 13 years off of my sentence in exchange for the
The
business, right?
client
Like
list.
the
Yeah.
client list, which is essentially the business. Like you're turning the business over to him. And so Buckley then becomes the new Danton. What I found odd about this little exchange is why was it 13 years exactly?
Yeah.
Eh,
It's kind of
like,
specific, right?
yeah, and that it was really specific. And I guess in order for this deal to work, he has to serve some time. But like, I'd be like, 3 years? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you would think he would get a better deal than 7 years. That's a lot of time in prison.
Yeah. So at the murder board, Beckett and Castle are like, why did he become a pimp? And it's funny how they change the outlook of this guy so often. Initially he's the good guy. He's like all the cops love him. And then Scarlett is telling them, oh, he was just lonely. He was so nice and he took me out to fancy dinners. And then you got this guy saying, oh yeah, he took over my business and he's a pimp now.
Yeah.
It's so weird. But Esposito finds out that his divorce cleaned him out, so that's probably why he needed money. Castle talks about how since Buckley, like, given how Buckley was with the law, and since everyone was talking like that, maybe he started to think that he was above the law. And apparently, the Montgomery, I was confused about this part because Montgomery arrives and Beckett's like, oh, how did the mayor take the news? But didn't she go with him?
Yes. She went to City Hall with him. So my sense would be that she went with him to the mayor's office, but maybe she didn't make it into the mayor's meeting
Yeah,
or meeting with the
yeah,
mayor.
it's weird. But Beckett's like, well, why would someone threaten Buckley if he was Danton? And so they deduce that maybe somebody took it over from him. He wasn't Danton anymore. She says that they need to go back to talk to Scarlet because there's no way she didn't know that Buckley was in charge, even though she was insisting earlier she didn't know who Danton was.
Yeah, and I that was really interesting too because I think throughout the episode, Beckett has some empathy for Scarlet, but she also keeps a distance with Scarlet because one of the things I noticed here, Beckett actually says we need to go talk to the call girl.
Yeah,
He doesn't say her
yeah.
name. And so I found that really interesting how Beckett was kind of putting that distance up there.
But Castle is begging Beckett for details on what she talked about with Alexis, but she insists it's private.
Mhm.
They get back to Buckley's office, and Scarlett has packing her things, and the other assistant is saying we can't have call girls walking her here. And Castle's like, no, only pimps. So, do you think she knew what he was talking about, or was she just confused?
The other assistant?
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, they probably learned all of this as the investigation is coming out. And I think maybe Castle's doing one of those, like, well, you guys had a call girl ring being run out of the office, but you can't let her work here, um, kind of things, which kind of comes back to my earlier, like, point that kind of drags everything down to, like, the realism. I Any of this being found out happening at this prosecutor's office is such a big deal because
Mm,
any of the cases this guy handled, they're
tainted.
about to get yeah, they're about to get a bunch of requests. Now, these requests may go nowhere, but it's going to create a lot of paperwork and a lot of work for people in the office because now any case he tried, you're going to have people coming out of the woodwork being like, "So,
Corruption.
yeah, right? Like there's corruption. Here's what went wrong on my case. Here's how he coerced me to confess. Here's how he offered me a deal that I wouldn't take because of this. So they're about to be slammed. And if this were real, right? Like, and
It's a giant
so
mess, is what you're saying, right?
yeah, like it's not. And I get Castle's reaction too, right? Like this guy was running a ring out of this office. That's bad. But they didn't know. But once they knew that she was involved as a call girl, like she had to go.
So they talk to Scarlett as she's packing up her stuff, and Becca's like, "Well, we know you lied, and that you knew that Buckley was the new Danton." And she reveals that the guy who used to work for Buckley is the new Danton. She says he'll kill me if I talk, and so she asks if she's questioning, like, do you think I have any chance of being a lawyer now? And so she's like, just talking about how, like, everything's going down the toilet for her now. And so Castle convinces her that he thinks she'll land on her feet eventually, and he convinces her to give them a name. And she says it's John Knox, who is the guy who was brought into Buckley's office and was heard arguing with him earlier. The guy
Hmm.
with the alibi with the priest. So
Yeah, I really like this scene between Castle and Scarlet because, she's sort of like, I have no connections, I have no in, I'm not gonna be able to go to law school, like really down and like self pity. Who's gonna help me now? And Castle's just like, you're gonna help yourself. And I
yeah,
thought that was a really good Rick Castle moment.
yeah. Even later, he really comes through. I think, even though she's deceitful, what he
Yeah,
says to her are very nice things. So
right. And I mean, she's just the right kind of manipulative. And we'll talk about that. But like, she's
yeah.
just the right kind of manipulative and she's working it the whole episode.
So when they're in the car, they're talking about, like, what this all means, and Castle starts going on and on about how this would be such a good character for a novel. And then they start talking it all out and how everything works. And Beckett speculates that maybe Knox sent someone else, and that's why he has an alibi, but he's still the one who's behind it. So they go to his club, and he's outside, and he doesn't want to talk to them. And Castle's like, why don't you just arrest him? She's like, for what? They don't have anything on him. And she's like, and we promised Scarlett that we wouldn't tell him that, she's the reason that we know that it's him. So
Right. And I mean, like, I think this is kind of a good casket moment, or at least a Kate and Rick partnership moment. Or I guess I should say Beckett and Castle partnership moment. Because, like, he's the one who promises Scarlett that she'll be safe and won't be identified. And Beckett just honors that.
So Castle goes home and he finds Scarlett beaten up and waiting on his doorstep. And she's like, I had nowhere else to go. And she says that a friend in the publishing business gave her his address, so that's how he knew, or she knew where he lived. And he's like, "Oh, Martha and Alexis went to the theater," and so he's like, "Oh, did Knox do this to you?" And she says, "It doesn't matter," which is a key detail, right? She
Mhm.
dodges that question, but she's like, "Why are you so nice to me?" And she's like full on manipulating him here, right? She's playing
Yeah, and again, it
the injured doe.
yeah, and I mean, like, again, it kinda comes back to this whole trope about, like, working your way through school. She's just a poor innocent kid who came to the city and had a hard life and had to go into sex work, and because even Castle's, like, encouraging her, like, "You just gotta get out from underneath his thumb. Like, you don't have to play into this. You just have to get away from him."
So I had forgotten the twist in this episode until she said, "You think I'm beautiful?" Because I was like, "Please." She did not really pull off for me the whole like she doesn't think she's beautiful kind of line. And to me that just started, my suspicions.
Yeah, and I think that line is placed there, right? Because she kisses him, like,
Yeah.
after that, right? Because he's like, "How do you know I'm not nice to all the beautiful women on my doorstep?" And he, like, just pushes her away, right? He's like, "No, this is not appropriate." I mean, he doesn't say anything, he just kinda pushes her away because it's not
Yeah.
appropriate. And tells her that she doesn't have to be that person with him. Like, she doesn't have to play a role basically, right? She's safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think for me, the reason why that "I'm beautiful" moment kind of sends up red flags is that, like, nothing else in this episode other than this narrative she kinda starts to plant about being afraid and everything indicates that she's the kind of person that has any self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
Having a hard knock life doesn't necessarily precipitate self-esteem issues. And she's,
Yeah.
like, kind of coming I don't know how to really describe this in a really great way, but, like, she's conflating 2 different victimhood narratives here of the poor girl who got taken by the city versus, like, the girl who doesn't know she's beautiful and gets trapped into this dark web.
But she pulls out her trump card, which is a photo
Mhm.
of her with the reverend who provided the alibi. And she's like, that's why he has an alibi, because he's a client and he had me take this photo with him so that he could use it as blackmail. And so and then he tells her, "I'm going to take you to the hospital and I'm not going to take no for an answer." And so the next morning he's in the precinct and he's kind of peacocking about, right? He's like really proud of himself that he has this photo, and he shows it to Beckett, and she's like, "Where did you get that?" She
Right.
immediately hones in on, "Oh my god, where did you get this?" And he like tells her, "Oh, I got it from Scarlett," and she calls it a date, right?
Mhm.
But he's like, "It wasn't a date." He tries explaining that, she showed up on my doorstep, and I was comforting her, and she's like, "Why didn't you call me?" Which is a fair question, right?
Right,
Why didn't you immediately call Beckett?
which because, again, to bring some realism to this, like, this immediately creates I mean, she's actually quite the lady's brilliant, okay? The Scarlet Lady's pretty brilliant, I'm not gonna lie. Because she's actually creating, like, a really interesting chain of evidence problem here by giving him that photo, and then also, like, what actually happened at his apartment, because it's really just his word against hers
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of, "Oh, she showed up and she was battered, and,
I took her
nothing
inside,
happened."
and
Yeah, it was just this conversation. There was no questioning. We didn't question her. We didn't ask for this evidence. She just provided it. And so she's like kind of this is like a really good, I think, setup for Castle. Like, I don't know.
yeah.
This could be like a good 3-part episode where it's like, let's go to court and see what
It, it,
happens.
it could have gotten so much worse for Castle, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes.
She's Beckett's like, we're gonna talk about this some more.
Mhm.
But she has Esposito call Knox's surveillance team, and Castle's like, "What, you hadn't followed?" And he calls the hospital looking for Scarlett, and then he finds out that a man checked her out right after he left, and so they're all worried now. And then he gets a call, and it's from Scarlett, and she's like, "No, he has me and he's gonna kill me." And Beckett puts a trace on the call, which I was just like, I don't know if that's how phone calls are traced, but whatever.
Yeah,
For
I
this
mean,
show,
well,
it is.
well, that, and I mean, like, a man checks her out of the hospital. Doesn't she basically just have to leave AMA? That's not a thing. Like, nobody can come and check you out. Like, he can come and like pick her up. But like,
Yeah,
again, I think this is part of her whole setup, right? Because she's
yeah,
setting Knox up at this point.
yeah. So they arrive at a hotel where Scarlet and Knox are, and Beckett tries to make Castle stay behind, but because he feels invested in her, he refuses and he wants to go in. And just as they get outside the room, gunshots ring out and Scarlet screams. And they break down the door and they find Knox dead and Scarlet's holding the gun. But she gives like this whole sobby narrative about why wouldn't he stop? And I
Yeah,
had to,
like
I had, she gives her whole story.
he heard a noise outside and got distracted, so I started to struggle for the gun, and it went off. And like she's doing again, she's very good at playing this role of like
The
just being
victim.
the victim and being stunned. And this is what we might call white woman tears in action. Perhaps we might call it that. I don't know.
Back at the precinct, Castle's asking Beckett, "Do you think that she's going to be okay?" And she initially thinks that he's talking about like surface level, but he's actually talking deeper, right? Like life.
Hmm.
Is she going to be okay? And Beckett's like, "Well, I don't know because this kind of thing can run kind of deep, right?" But
Hmm.
Jessup arrives. He's like manhandled by one of the guards until Castle's like, no, 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 he's with me. The
Hmm.
guy's like, Castle, help! But he tells him, oh, I finally got a locksmith school who let me in. I just need a letter of recommendation from the police. And he asks, and he's
Yeah.
like, can you? He wants a letter from Beckett, which is so cute in a way because it's like this one little car ride, and he felt like they bonded enough where he can ask her for a letter of rec.
Yeah. I know. I mean, because he did help her, though. In his defense,
Yeah,
he did
yeah,
help her.
yeah,
And he's about
and
to do
he
it
helps
again.
them again. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's it's so funny too, but he just picks up the file on her desk and starts looking at it. Right?
Yeah. Because I think he saw the lock. And so that's what
Yeah,
drew his interest.
but yeah, because Beckett was like, I can't watch you 24 hours a day, so I'm not giving you a letter of reg. And that makes Castle think, oh, wait, but you had him under surveillance, so he wants to know when the surveillance started. And then he figures out that he couldn't have been the one who beat her up because based on the time and when Scarlett showed up. And then that's when Jessup is like, hey, when you guys knocked on this door, the deadbolt wasn't set. And so that leads them to think that to figure out that Scarlett had set that up. She wasn't being kept hostage. So
Yeah, which the whole reveal about watching him 24 hours a day surveillance thing, I went back and forth on that in terms if that's another one where we're kind of just giving it to Castle because he's the lead and he needs to make the breakthrough. Or, as Beckett kind of intimates here, did everyone just buy her story to the point that, like, they weren't even going to check that aspect of
yeah,
it, right? Like,
yeah.
because, oh, he did it. He beat her up and then he tried to kill her. And so, why would we go and check the surveillance logs?
And I think that's why they have Castle not call Beckett because that would have probably, Beckett's brain would have figured out, hey, that's not possible.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's like a convenient plot thing that they stuck in there. Next, we see Scarlett. She doesn't look beat up anymore. She looks flawless. She's sitting in a restaurant drinking wine and she's taking calls. She's making appointments. And Castle calls her and he tells the story. Repeats her story about arriving in New York. And, she tries to pull her lost little girl story
Hmm.
on him one more time. She's like, I just need a few more jobs to get through things. But he's there and he's there with everybody else and they make the arrest and Castle says thank you for not saying I told you so. She's like, oh, that starts tomorrow.
Yeah, and so I like that little like exchange between them, but that I told you so didn't work for me because in the last scene when they're kind of puzzling this out, Castle's he mentions like we believed her and Kate said we all did.
Yeah.
So she kind of intimates that they follow it. And again, it's not clear if she means the beating part of this or all of it, but just her actions alone in terms of like trying to hide her identity and all that stuff. Beckett fell for it too. So why is
Yeah,
it suddenly an I told
I
you
know
so
what
to
you mean
Castle?
because it's not technically an I told you so because we didn't actually see Kate casting any kind of suspicion on Scarlet.
Yeah, she bought it too. Like she was also
Yeah.
taken by her. So like why would this be an I told you so?
But so back in Castle's apartment, Alexis hugs him and tells him, "Thank you for being the best dad ever." And she says, "Thanks for not pushing me when I was working something out." And she tells him that the school is starting a foreign exchange program to France. And so the program lasts 3 weeks, and she wanted to talk to Beckett about whether she should go. And she told her that, you should go because you're going to be going off to college soon, and you might as well, get a head start on knowing what that feels like. But Alexis tells him that she decided not to go after all because she already got his birthday present and she wants to see him open it. And so they have ice cream and they talk about colleges, and she mentions that she's thinking about Oxford, and he's just like, that's in England, right?
Yeah, he starts panicking because like, oh, she's gonna go all the way to England. But yeah, I
Not
was
my
wondering,
baby girl.
did you do a study abroad program?
No, I did not.
I did. I went to Cuba and Guatemala.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I would have wanted to. I mean, because the JET program was really popular when I was in high school, but for some reason I never went. So,
Well, where would you have gone? Like, where would you have
well, JET is
dreamed?
for Japan, I think.
Oh,
Is it
okay.
specifically? Yeah, JET stands for Japan Exchange and Teaching. So,
Okay, cool. Cool, cool.
okay, so Beckett's hair watch. She looks very middle of growing into her nice hair still. Not quite short, but it's getting longer.
Yeah, the layers I think is what's killing her here. The layers. You're right, because she is working into the longer hair, which I'm pretty sure are mostly extensions.
Hmm.
And so because this looks like good extension hair to me, because the way that you would insert and install extensions would actually make this haircut look really nice, probably. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I think it's the layering and the blowing out of it does not.
Yeah.
It's not classic Kate Beckett hair, is all I'm saying. This is
Yeah.
no hate on Sonic Haddock or the hair department.
I'm not a fan of this era of Kate Beckett's hair. I've said it before, but even now, even though it's getting longer, I just still not really digging it.
Yeah.
Pop culture references. The only one that I noted down was the Cape Fear one. So
Yeah, and there was another one, but I lost it because I was trying to catch it on my second watch, but there was something in opposition to Cape Fear. I think it was another movie because Castle was like, or is this more like this one, this scenario?
oh, I
And
think
I
I
and I
vaguely
lost it.
yeah. I don't
Um,
know.
yeah, Martha isms. Not a lot of Martha in this episode. In fact, on my first watch, I kind of blinked and missed her. But she says to Castle, there's some things a woman only wants to talk to another woman about. And when he kind of pushes back and like, well, you're a woman, she tells him, I'm on the wrong side of 40 for what Alexis is going through right now.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that he had to get a dig in. It's like 40.
Yeah.
Okay, author's notes. The episode title for this one, Love Me Dead, is a play on the Beatles song Love Me Do. And then at the end, the Oxford scene is the source of a very internet famous speechless gif of Castle where he holds up his hand and he's just like trying to talk but no words come out. So
Hmm.
if I for years I thought that was from Firefly, but it's from this episode of Castle.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, he's wearing like a dark purple T-shirt or a dress shirt, so I kind of thought that that's I don't know. He just kind of looked like Mal in that shirt somehow to me. So
I don't know, because like for me, I assume Firefly was shot on digital. I don't think it would have been shot on film. But there's something about the coloring of Firefly where it just looks dusty all the time,
hmm.
whereas this show doesn't. And so that's how I usually differentiate. But I could see where you're going with the clothing.
So Casket Corner, I feel like they had a lot of amusing moments where he pissed her off and she's just
Hmm.
like, "You're gonna pay for this."
Right, right.
And then Neoshia wrote down the "I'm not his girlfriend" part with Jessup.
Yeah, I think those denials are kind of important because she does do the I'm not his girlfriend, but Castle doesn't say anything at this one.
Yeah. Bestseller list scenes. I liked the scene in the car with Jessup in the handcuffed and everything. That whole sequence. I thought it was so amusing.
I mean, and then for me, it was like when the team kind of appears like the Avengers right behind Scarlet when they want to make the arrest while Castle's still on the phone to her. Very dramatic. Good stuff. 10 out of 10.
Mm. Favorite line. I like stalking is a damn ugly word.
Yeah, and then also breaking up a bar fight is a sure way to get hit. Don't worry, it'll be over soon from Beckett. I know we mentioned that early on, but like, I mean, that's life advice, right? Like, why am I getting in the middle? It's kind of like what my grandma told me when I was a little kid. Like, don't get in the middle of that dog fight. Let them
They'll
handle their
punch it
business.
out. They'll punch themselves out.
Exactly. Let them handle it. They'll get through it, and you won't get hurt.
Alrighty, we're gonna take a quick break and we'll come back with a new Beckett's interrogation. Okay, we're back with a new Beckett's interrogation. The way this works is I'm going to ask 6 questions about the episode we just discussed, and you'll have 5 seconds to come up with an answer.
All right, let's do it.
Question 1. What does Jessup describe himself as?
A wordsmith?
Yep. Which is funny because he can't think of the words that he wants after that.
Yeah.
Question 2. What color was the rusted beetle that Scarlet drove into the city?
Blue.
Yep.
And it was a rusted floorboard. Rusted floorboard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it made me think of the reason I remember that was because it made me think of where the heart is, because it's a whole part of that book and the movie where the floorboards are rusted out, and so she has to keep her feet. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So, question 3. What does Scarlet joke her great great grandmother did to pass down her high heels?
I don't know.
She says she wore it on the Mayflower.
Oh right, yeah, she made a joke about that. Okay.
Yeah. Question 4. What belongings of the victims were found on the roof at the scene?
His briefcase and his left shoe.
Very good. What call girl name does Scarlet make a date for at the end?
I don't know.
Candy.
Oh, Candy. Candy, classic call girl name.
And last question. What nickname does Mazzara call Ryan?
Oh, something Golden Boy. Nope. Okay, I don't got it.
He calls him Honey Milk.
Honey Milk.
And it's so funny because Esposito looks at him like, what? that gets explained later, but I thought it was funny that they drop it this early.
Yeah. So I got 3 out of 6, right?
3 out of 6, very good.
All right. This is
All
not. I've done some 4 out of 6 showings, so this isn't the best showing I've had, but it's not the worst.
Yeah. All right, so quick self-promotional stuff. Neoshia and I are actually currently hosting another podcast of mine called Wires from the Deep, which covers the Apple TV show Silo, which is currently in season. We're going into week 5 of a 10-episode season, so we're about I'm approaching halfway. So if you enjoy our conversations here on Castle Unit and you also watch Silo, please tune into that. It's available on most podcasting platforms and on YouTube, and we'd love to have you listen to us there as well.
And I should also mention, I was also in episode 78 of Rom-Com Detectives, the Mentalist Unit, to talk about my favorite episode of The Mentalist, which is called Black Gold and Red Blood. It's episode 6 of season 2.
So any last thoughts about the episode?
No, I thought this was overall an enjoyable episode.
I mean, it was pretty filler to me, and maybe lower than usual than I would rate it, just because like the case details were a little meh for me. But I really enjoyed Jessup. He's like a standout character for me, and I would rewatch the episode just for him, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're enjoying Rom-Com Detectives, we hope you'll consider taking a minute to leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. For our question of the week, leave us a comment and tell us whether you believe Scarlett's story. If you'd like to join additional conversations about Castle, you can visit the Castle subreddit at reddit.com/r/CastleTV. To contact me and Neoshia, email us at host@romcomdetectives.com. Follow us on Instagram, Threads, or Blue Sky at Romcom Detectives, or leave us a voicemail or text message at 1-650-733-XOXO or 9696. This episode of Rom-Com Detectives was recorded on July 27, 2026. Rom-Com Detectives Castle Unit is co-hosted by Crystal Watanabe and Neoshia Roemer and is produced by People's House. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you guys next time for our breakdown of 210, One Man's Treasure. Bye.
Bye, everyone.